Show. I'm Scotty Joe Vegas, inviting you to stay tuned for the next 30 minutes as we discuss stories of addiction. Plus, bringing you a buffet full of taboo topics. And now, Chichirarigatu Gregastu.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, here we are. Welcome to the Greg Struss Show. I am the one and only Greg Struss. I don't know. I didn't take my medication today. Do you see this? I don't know. Someone was saying, well, why don't you read cue cards? And I'm like, I don't know. All of a sudden, it just hit me before the show. I've been dealing with craziness in my life, and it's kind of interesting to look this way because you see the world in a different way when your eyes are crossed.
That's the face I do when I do doggy style.
So here we are. Screw it. Here we are before the show. And Scott is like indulged in with the group of guys we have out here, and he's giving his wisdom on where to go to pick up women. And because we talk a lot about addiction and various things on this program, and I'm starting to kind of think that I'm professing too much, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Where did you tell? So he was like telling these guys, and Kenny's on sound, and he's starting a new life and trying to meet women. Where do you tell him to go? But what kind of a meeting?
Sexual anonymous? Sex anonymous.
Okay, so I want to know, really, from this standpoint, why going, and there is a group, okay? There is a group called Sex Anonymous. It's part of a 12-step program where people that have an addiction to sex, that's real.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that some people frown on it. I mean, they're trying to get help. I mean, it's.
Right, but
it's people that think about sex a lot. They just, they don't know what to do.
It's a compulsion for sex. So let me be a little bit realistic here. Why does someone... Now, okay, so we know that it's quite possible that someone will score with someone that relapses after a meeting at Sex Anonymous, but I'm just like...
I said Why
is that so wrong?
What is it? NA. That's where you pick up women.
Narcotics Anonymous?
Narcotics Anonymous. That's what I was told by my clergyman.
And I'll be honest with you. I'm getting really tired of being so straight-laced and having to do things the so-called right way, or we talk about the next right thing. But it works for me. But I find that I'm more uptight because most people don't do it that way. I don't know. For some reason, when I was younger, I was always kind of thinking that, my grandma always told me, like when I was 3, 4 years old, I remember that. She's like, a gentleman has a haircut that's down to the collar. A gentleman speaks with good words. He opens the door for a lady.
Was this the grandma that cussed you out?
No.
Okay.
No, Grandma Helen was like a second mother to me.
A lady's lady.
She was a lady, and she would tell me these things. And so now that I'm in my adult life, I'm finding in my job that I take on way too much. So it's like as I talk about letting go and I talk about making changes, it's like I feel like I'm really uptight. Like I'm not letting go. And then thank you for letting me go as you talked about where to go to pick up people, for a nice date.
Everybody wrote down phone numbers.
That's right.
Went to websites.
Anyway, tonight
True.
We have a buffet of taboo topics, an all-you-can-eat buffet of taboo topics.
Ooh.
And we're going to be talking a little bit about some stories of addiction, which I have found in counseling that have been very interesting, uplifting, and there's always something to learn. See, I always found that when, you remember back in the 80s that you could learn a lot from a dummy with those safety belts,
yes.
seatbelt commercials?
Yes.
I think we can always learn a lot from people that might not be perceived as being more intelligent than us.
Correct.
Okay, because I think we all have a story, we all have experiences, and it doesn't mean that just because someone is at a higher level that they can't learn. But this ego that stands in the way of us being a little more humble. That what can I learn going to a meeting, or what can I learn going and talking with people?
That's part of the human element.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Denny Hassert has been in the news. He was the Speaker of the House, Speaker of the House of Representatives, I believe. So second in line to the president.
Oh.
I believe it was under the second Bush presidency.
Okay.
So if something happened to President Bush and something happened to Vice President Cheney, he would have been the President of the United States.
Got it.
So anyway, he was brought up on charges because of something going on with campaign financing laws. It turns out he was paying off people that he had allegedly, and now they're saying it really happened, sexually abused when he was a wrestling coach down in Yorkville, Illinois. All right, for the people that are down south. It's Yorkville, Illinois. Another thing that kind of grates on my nerves. When you go up to Muskegon, Michigan, they're like, yeah, you come from Illinois. All right. So, but there's like now things up called Stillinoid because of the taxes and all this other bullshit that's going on here. So, long story short, Denny Hastert, they should have known, he had his wrestling championship stripped of him. He had his teacher's pension stripped of him, away from him. But they won't take away the government pension because these crimes were not committed when he was in public office. But I think they should have seen it because he was trying to, allegedly get a job at a Catholic school and passing a bill for, meatless Fridays during Lent, but altar boy Saturdays were okay. Thank you. So anyway, taboo topics, and let's do a show, goddammit. We'll be back after this.
All right. Yeah.
My name is Phil Struss. I'm the Mother Station's set inspector. It seems to me that your set doesn't meet our code.
What are you talking about, Mr. Truss? Who filed this complaint?
Well, this complaint is signed by a Mrs. Mary Beth Wilgerberg and a Glenn O'Connor. It says, quote, unquote, that your set is very unprofessional, has no aspect ratio, unorganized, terrible lighting, no talent, and oh yeah, you smell.
That's a pretty big list of complaints. Are you sure that you have the right show?
I'm sorry, hey, well, between you and me, though, your set looks great. I'm talking sweet. You got a smoking set. These people up north, they must not have any talent.
Mr. Struss, who are the people up north?
Oh, Greg, like you've never butted heads with the pinhead, stuffy head honchos at the Mother Station in Elmhurst. Don't play games with me. I have to answer to these barbarians. People. Can you believe that they produced that Life Steal show with Pat Heffer?
Mr. Struss, that's Lifestyles with Pat Sheffer.
Yeah, whatever. What else do they produce? Oh, yeah, that phony quiz show about cops. Quiz Dicks? Did you ever see Quiz Dicks? Now, that's a cheap-ass set. That's something I should inspect, but it's a Mother Station production. That says it all.
Mr. Struss, I think you mean Quizits.
Quizits, Quiz Dicks. What's the difference? The set still sucks.
Mr. Struss, if you work for the Mother Station, then why are you ripping all their shows?
Well, because they suck. But also, I'm just like all of the other Mother Station brass. I'm a hypocrite. Well, Greg, I gotta go. I have to fill out an application with multimedia.
Tell Struss, everybody. Thank you, Tal. Thank you. Tell Struss. Thank you, Tal.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Greg Show. I am Greg Struss, and here it is again. Do you see this? I've got this problem again, and I don't know if it's the medication that's wearing off. I don't know how people walk around like this. I would be absolutely insane. Maybe that's the way you see the world. It's like, okay, I really can't see everybody because I've got a crossed eye. But anyway, it's good to have you along with us. Now I'm shutting my eyes. I'm just like flabbergasted by what we talk about in between these segments. And the funny thing was, when I went out to CBS, around 1998, I think, when I went out to CBS, and I had the privilege of meeting Tom Snyder, who was one of my broadcast idols. I wrote the show, and somebody that was working on the show said, "Sure, when you're out here, come on in. We'd like to, we'd be glad to have you here." So I walk in, and I'm thinking, like, this is going to be a really cool experience because this big office, everything else. And it really was not much more than what we're working with here. But it was great because here's TS. He always called himself TS. For those of you who don't know, Tom Snyder had a show on NBC following Johnny Carson, like in the 70s and 80s. David Letterman ended up taking his place, and then years later, he was on ABC radio for a while. And really, his claim to fame in later years after he left NBC, he went to work at WABC in New York and was on the local news. He got PO'd at the director or someone, and he flipped them the bird. He was mad, and they fired him. They gave him a week off, and then because he flipped the guy off, and they took the camera. They took the camera, and he was on air. Anyway, so I go to CBS. I sat in there, and it was just like breathtaking what he was doing. So in between the segments, it kind of reminded me of what we do here. Only we don't take our microphones off, so everybody on the crew can hear what we're talking about.
Or have a two-shot.
He ends up going into it. There was a lady from Third Rock and the Sun. And in between the commercial breaks, I could not believe what he was talking about with her. And she's getting in on it. At that time, it was like the whole Monica Lewinsky thing that was going on. Are you with us tonight?
Yes, I.
And so in between these commercial breaks, the pros take their microphones off because in case it goes on live.
Yep.
And then you got serious problems. So
Yep.
I have a feeling that he started doing that after he got a week off for flipping the bird to the camera to the entire New York audience. So what my story is with that,
His best
I'm sweating
guest
tonight.
that I've ever seen on his show was Robert Blake, and probably Steve Dahl, and Andy Kaufman, I think. I think Andy Kaufman was on there, but I could be wrong. It was a long time ago.
But he had such a way of communicating, and it's gone.
Yeah.
And when he went to CBS, and I always thought David Letterman was a gem because he kind of got TS's spot, but I think he always felt guilty about it. And once he got his CBS contract, he brought Tom Snyder over from CNBC, and Tom had a wonderful run on CBS. And I really miss him. He was a very nice man. Always wrote me back when I wrote him a letter. And
Was that the Late Show?
It was the Late Show. Now it's hosted by James Corden, but that show originally started in 1995 with Tom Snyder. So
That was
another
only
story.
95?
Yeah, it's 20. So yeah, it's 21 years ago. So, but he had a good run.
Did you guys go pick up people at the Narcotics Anonymous?
No,
meeting,
we did
or-
not. But I thought some of the stuff that you kind of talk about, he was talking about, like with Monica Lewinsky and what was on the dress, and he had like this deep cough, this deep laugh, smoker's laugh,
Smoker's laugh.
and he jizzed all over her dress and ha 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 ha. Tom, 5 seconds, and he's like, and let me tell you something. That woman was on 3, 2, and boom, he was on.
Yes.
Just a pro.
Yep.
Just one of the greats. And that kind of television, I'd like to say that, I'd like to get to the point of where maybe we can do something like that we are kind of doing something like that it's a conversation type show.
Gotcha.
We talk about various things. We haven't really focused on guests, but we do
We were
talk about
supposed to have a
interesting
guest
stuff.
tonight.
Yeah, and this is what was kind of interesting. So Scott called me last week and said, by the way, I have a guest for next week. And I said, okay, who is it? He's like, well, I booked Sandy, his first ex-wife.
Yes.
And I said, oh, man. At first, I was kind of apprehensive because I'm thinking they haven't seen each other in a while.
22, 23 years.
So I let it marinate, and I'm like, God, this is just going to be
When
a great
you
show.
stood up at our wedding.
Right.
You stood up at the Super Bowl #1.
And I thought that I was a horrible best man, but we'll talk about that some other time.
Okay.
Here's the deal. So I'm thinking to myself today, oh, this is going to be great. I tell the guys this is going to be good. Scott's having his first ex-wife on the show. She's a lovely lady, and I think this is going to be good TV. So last night we're talking, and I said, well, what topics are off conversation? What are off limits? Because I thought that's being respectful and saying, okay, what are some of the questions that he says absolutely nothing. So today,
Sandy would lead you anywhere you want to go.
right. So today, he called and said she was on her way to a Sex Anonymous meeting. No, I'm kidding. And incidentally, that's where they met. No, I'm kidding. So Sandy, if you're watching, I'm just joking. She's really a gem, and that was kind of interesting because what we wanted to talk about, and hopefully in the very near future, is the visit that you made to the psychic.
Yes.
Because this story has gone on and on and on.
4 years.
4 years now.
That's been navigated in your scrolls on YouTube.
Yeah. So 4 years that Scott and I have been out here doing the show and kind of reunited after kind of a elongated break of not seeing each other for many years. And there's always something every week that the psychic told him out of 2 visits that lasted probably an hour each.
Well, actually, there were about 7 readings, but Sandy was only there, I think, for 1. And when I hear about Reunited, I think of Peaches and Herb. Reunited and it feels
They met at a Sex Anonymous
so
meeting, too. Did you know that?
They did?
I guess so.
Herb was a cop in Ohio.
Was he really?
Yep.
It's herb.
Herb?
Herb.
Herb, it's Herb.
But herb is quiet for an herb. It's like peaches and herb, like an herbal.
Peaches and Herb.
Did I just sound kind of stuck up when I said that to you?
You were kind of like thinking you were a little bit more educated or
No,
something?
I don't want
know.
Herb was that nasty character from Burger King back in the 80s, remember? He was like, now they have that creepy king that no wonder people aren't going there anymore. He looks like a child molester
I
of
used
some
to
kind.
love Burger King. Then they stopped flame broiling them.
Did I just say child molester?
think
What did
you
I
did.
say? And I used the GD word, across, not gangster disciple, but the other thing. And because we were talking like, let's do a show, damn it. Let's do the show, damn it.
Let's
Instead
do
of
a show, damn it.
focusing on all this other stuff,
Yes.
let's do a show, damn it.
Jesus, smoking the...
Okay, go ahead.
You're going to cut me off there. You,
No,
you raised the hand.
I can't see it, but go ahead.
You remind me of the guy that I went and seen preach on Sunday. He kept on looking at the guy who owned the church and...
Can we...
What?
Well, you're talking right now, and I...
Oh. Hi.
Hi. Where is Scott?
Are we going for a 2-shot?
So, Scott...
Hi. Not a 1-shot, too. If you just joined us, this is the Chin Network.
So what happened that, when we come back, we're going to find out why Sandy did not come to the show tonight. I think it's because I didn't make the closing phone call to say, look, it's great that you've agreed to do the show. What are some of the things that are off topic? I'm going to ask about your sex life,
When you have
even though you did meet at that meeting.
when you have kids, your life changes in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. She has 2 kids.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that's something that I was always told, that I'm selfish. I don't know what that's like. Anyway.
That's the first step of the 12-step program, right
When I'm
there.
selfish, okay. Anyway,
There's
when we
12
come
steps
back,
to that.
we're going to find out exactly why Scott's ex-wife didn't come here. We're going to talk about our all-you-can-eat buffet of taboo topics. You're on the Greg Struss Show, and we'll return after this. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Okay, we are back. Welcome back to the Greg Struss Show here on Comcast Xfinity and, of course, YouTube. And it's good to have you along. Let's come in a little more. Am I sounding temperamental? They're going to say, this guy is so temperamental. It's community television, folks. What are we
It's
gonna do?
community.
Yeah, and
television.
I used to like when we were on WWMT in Michigan, and we were working out of a facility that was kind of old. It was an access facility, and they were very kind to us. We had to leave the university because we were moving to commercial television. So it wasn't like we had a big budget to work with. But the people at WKTV in Wyoming Kentwood were just terrific to us. Tom Norton. I'm trying to think of Greg's name. Brian Parrish, I think, a bunch of other people there, and they were always so kind to us. But I'll tell you what, we had most of the guys and gals that came with the show. The show was Grand Alley with Gregory Struss. It was a really cool concept, and poured my life and soul into it. And we would walk in, and the equipment was not working. And I remember Greg McNeil was an Irish guy, and he had a horrible temper. And he's like, "What is wrong with this equipment?" And I always said, "Greg, these people are being very kind to us. They're working with us. We're not paying any money to do this show out of here. All they want is our show without commercials." I mean, what a deal. But it wasn't the best equipment to work with. So this deck would freeze and not work. And Tom, I'll never forget, would walk into the studio and say, "Oh, you got to tickle it." So he would tickle the tape machine, the tape would engage, and here we would go again.
There you go.
I mean, you got to make it work. And that's what I was saying, like in the beginning of the show of like doing things right or whatever, it just doesn't work that way. You got to do things to get the job done. Where were we? We were talking about, that's my little diatribe. We were talking about Sandy. Sandy was your first.
If you just joined us, if you just joined us, we're talking about a guest that was supposed to come tonight was my first wife. We should have never gotten married. We were best of friends and still are.
But they have not seen each other in a matter of years, and I was kind of excited about this today. So I told all the guys, I said, "Oh yeah, Scott's ex-wife is coming out here. This is going to be a really interesting show." But we didn't communicate to say, all right, all we want to do is really talk about the psychic readings. It would have been nice to find out about the marriage, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe she's not comfortable with that, and that's okay, because that's not something we talk about on TV anyway.
She is the only living person next to my cousin and my second wife that can put me in those readings. That's it.
Okay. So Scott wants to get some closure on this, I think, with...
Some opening and closure.
Or are you trying to get the hint for the $1 million jackpot on Wheel of Fortune or whatever that was?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things that are going to happen. And she reminded me of a lot of things that I totally forgot about. And it'll happen. It will.
And I think what a lesson that I think we can take out of this marriage is that this was a new life for both of them. You were living in Chicago. She was living in Chicago. You were born and raised in the Chicagoland area, and Posen, Dixmoor. Where was she?
She was in Country Club Hills, and I was in Blue Island at the time.
So Country Club Hills, and she lived with her father was a police officer, her mother was inspector. Okay, so he was like a high-ranking person with Country Club Hills, and good for him. He's like, if you're going to go up there, you're going to marry my daughter.
Yep.
And because of the parental influence, they weren't going to live together because that wasn't something that was acceptable to them.
Yep.
But I wonder what would have happened had you guys just tried it. Because that's a big step to make, not only to get married, but to move so far away. And
every 100 miles I got away from her family, she got worse because she just loved it and missed her family. And up there, it's kind of isolated, and you can always look back on it and say, well, we should have did this, we should have did that, but it was part of our life, and I always laughed with Sandy and had a good time. And you've always laughed with Sandy, and Sandy was always a part of the gang. And we are, as humans, we are selfish. We push each other away when we probably need each other the most. And you walk.
How did you feel, though, going through the divorce? Were you devastated by it? Did you feel as though you failed?
Oh, absolutely.
And what was that?
Well, you feel like you failed, but there was an elephant in the room. And nobody wanted to talk about it, but we were best friends. We just shouldn't have got married. And the psychic lady says, "You'll be married in 6 months. You'll be living in Wisconsin in 6 months. You'll be married in 6 months. You'll be divorced in 6 months." The exact words what she said. Sandy says we were married more than 6 months. I'm like, no.
You were married over 6 months because I went.
Okay, so I lived in Wisconsin.
All right, what happened to you?
It's the White Castle.
Okay, no. Take a look. Let's look at this shot again. Oh, okay. Were you drinking last night? What's wrong? Let's put the glasses on.
I can't even talk anymore. What the hell's going on?
Is that better? There we go. Okay.
There's the guy I married. My mother was calling today with Merrill Lynch on the other line, and they were looking to talk to me, and my phone went dead. But, they couldn't get in contact with me, and so I have to talk to the Merrill Lynch broker or something tomorrow about something. My mother will probably just transfer some funds and no inheritance. So there you go.
I think this is all a game. I think this is a game of manipulation and control.
Well,
because they're going to show you, they're going to say, look,
Mother's Day's right around the corner.
because of whatever's gone on in the relationship, all right? This is what I always tell patients and clients. I'm like, let's face it, you have a history with mom and dad or your boyfriend or girlfriend, and they have a history with you. And that history, we're always reminded of, and that's why I think it's hard to move beyond some things and get well. And I was telling you today that one of the most, I really think one of the most powerful things you ever said to me was being with safe people. Safe people are people that aren't judging us and who accept us for who we are. And sometimes that can be a complete stranger. And sometimes I feel that I can get the most out of unburdening myself with a complete stranger because they don't know me, there's no emotional investment, and they're not there to judge me.
Correct.
But
people who really love you will do the same thing and not judge you.
Yeah, and I've had a hard time with that.
Well,
so that's
you.
something I'm
That's not
kind of
them,
finding.
that's you.
Well, yeah, this is me. So
I got to clear the record really quick. I dated Sandy for 6 years and then got married in 6 months. Okay? Then I dated my second wife for 6 months and was married for 14 years. So you kids out there, good luck.
you met your second wife.
I married her within 6 months, like 6 months from when I dated her. Because the psychic says there'll be a woman in between the two marriages. Her name will be Rachel. And, of course, I met Rachel. She worked at the Subway in Moseley, Wisconsin. Her last name was, I can't say. And she says, you'll have fun with her. And my Uncle Fred would sit there and say, that son of a bitch gets curb service. And curb service means...
Okay. I don't know. Something's going on with me. That's the elixir. It's in the cough syrup that I've been taking today. And unfortunately, we've been having a conversation in between this break because you said something about being around safe people and that loved ones can also not judge us.
are toxic.
They're toxic. So Kenny came out, he was like, I agree with you that, yeah, our loved ones, and this is where I was saying, we have a history with people, and they have a history with us. So even though we look at people a certain way, they also look at us a certain way.
Oh, yes.
And so how am I going to change your perception of me? I don't think I will. I don't think I'm going to change it. And then again, it's like, do I want to change my perception of you? Are you that important in my life and bring me any joy that I want to work at changing? I'm out of breath.
That
perception.
It's tough to change when you have that pressure of the toxic. Like I was talking to my girlfriend the other day. It's like you go from one pool of toxicness to the next, whether it's, in close family, friends, work. It's just sometimes there's just too much toxic and you're not going to be right for a couple days.
Well, and then I think you can go the other way around of where you now are so separated from everybody that you're in your own little world of, I don't want to say it's toxic, but after a while
Self-medication.
But yeah, so the eating, the smoking cigarettes, or going to, whatever it is, going to Sex Anonymous.
Masturbating uncontrollably.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
Going to the Sex Anonymous
midget
meetings
porn.
and trying to
I
pick up,
understand,
trying to pick up your next wife.
Yes.
And so,
Or a Filipino church.
or a Filipino church, of course.
Do we do my brother's impersonation?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, can we get the close-up on me?
Okay, here you go.
You're dead to me.
All right, that's a good example. Are you ever going to change your brother's perception of you?
I don't think.